How every most famous gangster dead. Pablo Escobar, a Colombian drug lord and leader of the Medellin cartel, was tracked down by a special unit of the Colombian police, supported by U.S. intelligence agencies. After locating his hideout, a peach chase and a shootout broke out across the rooftops of buildings. Escobar tried to escape, but he was shot and killed. The official version states that he died from police gunfire. One of the bullets struck him in the head. Al Capone did not die as a result of violence. Unlike many other gangsters, the cause of his death was health complications, mainly advanced syphilis. The disease led to severe brain damage. Shortly before his death, he suffered a stroke, followed by pneumonia and cardiac arrest. Griselda Blanco, one of the most influential figures in the drug trade. She was shot dead outside a butcher shop as she was leaving after shopping. The attacker rode up on a motorcycle and opened fire on her. It was a method of killing typical for cartels, known as a motorcycle hit. Her death was likely the result of a settling of scores connected to her past involvement in the criminal underworld. Amado Carrillo Fuentes died during a surgical operation. He was attempting to change his appearance to avoid capture by authorities. He underwent extensive plastic surgery, including procedures on his face. The official cause of death was complications during the operation, most likely related to a reaction to anesthesia or medical errors. John Gotti, the boss of the New York Gambino crime family, died in a prison hospital in Springfield. The cause of death was throat cancer. At the time, Gotti was serving a life sentence in prison. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, one of the most well-known drug lords, is still alive and serving a life sentence. However, he came close to death multiple times, including when members of the Tijuana cartel opened fire on the car he was traveling in. Bugsy Siegel. He was shot by an unknown assailant while sitting in the living room of his partner's home. The shots were fired from outside through a window. He was struck by several bullets, including a fatal one to the head. The murder was never officially solved, but it is widely believed that mafia circles were behind his death. Possible motives include massive financial losses related to the construction of the Flamingo Las Vegas casino in Las Vegas, as well as tensions with other crime bosses who had lost trust in him. Lucky Luciano. He died of a heart attack at Naples International Airport in Naples. According to reports, he was supposed to meet a film producer who wanted to make a movie about his life. Just before the meeting, he collapsed and suffered a fatal heart attack. Dutch Schultz. He was shot in the restroom of Palace Chop House in Newark. The attack was part of gangland retaliation. The decision to eliminate him was made by the so-called Mafia Commission, which feared that his actions, especially his plan to kill a prosecutor, would draw too much attention from the authorities. Frank Nitti. He committed suicide. Amid growing legal troubles and pressure from authorities, including an investigation related to the film industry in Hollywood, Nitti left his home and went to the area near the railroad tracks in North Riverside. There, he shot himself 3 times and died at the scene. Salvatore Maranzano. He was murdered in his office at the Helmsley Building in Manhattan by men sent by Lucky Luciano. The assassination was part of a power struggle in the New York underworld following the end of the Castellamarese War. Luciano decided to eliminate Maranzano in order to take control and reorganize the mafia. Joe Masseria died as a result of an assassination during a gang war in New York City. He was shot in a restaurant in Coney Island. According to the most commonly accepted version of events, he met there with Charles Lucky Luciano, who in reality had organized the plot against him. If you made it this far, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you. Ignacio Coronel Villarreal. His death was the result of a precise operation by the Mexican army. Soldiers surrounded the luxury residence where Coronel was hiding. According to official army reports, Nacho did not intend to surrender and tried to escape, putting up active resistance. He died on the spot from a gunshot wound. It is often reported that he was shot in the head. Nazario Moreno Gonzalez has one of the most extraordinary stories in the Mexican drug war, as this boss died twice. The first time, the government announced that Moreno had been killed during an incredibly brutal 2-day battle between the federal police and the La Familia Michoacana cartel. Ultimately, Mexican special forces tracked him down and attempted to arrest him, but Moreno opened fire and was killed at the scene. Sam Giancana died in his home in Oak Park. He was shot to death in his basement kitchen while preparing a late-night supper. The killer approached him from behind and fired one shot into the back of his head, followed by 5 or 6 shots to the face and chin. James Whitey Bulger died in a brutal manner at the age of 89. Bulger was murdered inside the high-security prison, USP Hazleton. The attackers used a lock wrapped in a sock, a so-called slungshot, to beat him about the head and face. Bernardo Provenzano died of natural causes while under strict prison supervision. For years, Provenzano had been struggling with serious health issues that ultimately led to his death. Bladder cancer was the primary cause of his deteriorating condition. Salvatore Totò Riina died of natural causes. Riina suffered from kidney cancer. He also had serious heart problems and suffered from Parkinson's disease. Before his death, he underwent 2 surgeries, after which he never regained consciousness. He died in a medically induced coma. Emilio Quintero Payan, one of the cartel's key leaders, died in a confrontation with the federal police. Unlike some other bosses who surrendered without a fight, Quintero Payan was killed during an exchange of fire with the officers. Reggie Cray, one of the most famous British gangsters, died at the age of 66. The cause of his death was bladder cancer. He was released from prison on compassionate grounds just 5 weeks before his passing. Henry Hill, whose life served as the basis for the famous film Goodfellas, died in a surprisingly peaceful manner for someone who had spent decades fearing mafia retaliation. He passed away on June 12, 2012, in a Los Angeles hospital, a day after his 69th birthday. The direct cause of death was complications related to heart disease. Joey Gallo, known as Crazy Joe, died in one of the most spectacular executions in American mafia history. He was shot dead while celebrating his birthday at Humberto's Clam House. He was accompanied by his family. In the early morning hours, several armed men entered the establishment. According to the most popular accounts, the attackers opened fire almost immediately, discharging over a dozen shots. Albert Anastasia, one of the most ruthless mafia bosses and leader of the legendary Murder, Inc., was murdered in a Manhattan barbershop. Anastasia was sitting in a barber's chair at the Park Sheraton Hotel shop, with a hot towel on his face, relaxing during a shave. At that moment, his bodyguard stepped out of the establishment, likely on purpose, being in collusion with the assassins. 2 men with their faces covered rushed into the shop, drew their weapons, and opened fire on Anastasia. Disoriented and blinded, Anastasia lunged toward the attackers, but in what became a gruesome detail of this story, he charged at their reflections in the mirror instead of the gunmen themselves. He fell dead to the floor after being hit by several shots, including one to the head. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel.